The sun sank behind the hills of Bethlehem, painting the cracked earth in shades of crimson. The once golden fields lay barren, and the laughter of children had been replaced by the whisper of the wind. Through that silence walked Elimelech, his face hardened by worry. At his side, Naomi, his wife, carried in her arms what little was left of their home, a shawl, a jar of flour, and the memory of better days. Famine had struck without mercy, and Bethlehem and the house of bread no longer had bread to offer. "We must go," Elimelech said gravely. "Moab has food. We will live there until God looks upon his people again." Naomi nodded, though her heart resisted. Moab, a foreign land, a land of strange gods. Yet when hunger presses, even the most fearful feet must move. And so, with their 2 sons, Mahlon and Kilion, they journeyed eastward, to a place where the valleys were green and men spoke in unfamiliar tongues. Days turned into months, months into years. In Moab they found sustenance, but also their bitterest trial. Elimelech died, leaving Naomi alone with her sons. The pain bent her, but did not break her. Hope still lingered, and her sons took wives from among the Moabites, Orpah and Ruth. For a while laughter returned to the house, until fate, like a shadow, came once more. In a single decade, Naomi's life was emptied completely. Both of her sons died, leaving the 3 women alone in a foreign land. No husbands, no children, no future. One morning, as sunlight crept through the window, Naomi overheard a murmur among the traders. "The Lord has visited his people. Bethlehem has bread again." And with trembling hands, Naomi made a decision that would change history forever. "I will return to Bethlehem," she whispered. "Even if I return empty, I will return." But she did not yet know that one of those young women would follow her beyond despair, beyond the border, into a destiny God himself had already written. The morning mist clung to the valleys of Moab as Naomi prepared to leave. Her worn hands gathered the few belongings she still possessed, a cloak, a bundle of barley, and the aching memories of those she had lost. Orpah and Ruth stood beside her, their eyes glistening with tears. The road to Bethlehem stretched before them, long and uncertain, winding through mountains and dry plains. For hours they walked in silence. The sound of their footsteps echoed like whispers of the past. Then at a lonely crossroad, Naomi stopped. Her voice trembled as she turned to them. "My daughters," she said softly, "go back to your mothers' homes. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt kindly with the dead and with me. May you find rest in the house of new husbands." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she kissed them both. The 3 women wept aloud, clinging to each other as if grief itself had bound their souls together. But Naomi shook her head and stepped back. "I'm too old to have a husband again. Even if I had hope, even if I bore sons tonight, would you wait for them to grow? No, my daughter, it is more bitter for me than for you, for the Lord's hand has turned against me." Her words pierced the air like broken glass. Orpah sobbed, kissed Naomi one last time, and turned back toward Moab, her figure fading into the morning fog. But Ruth did not move, her eyes, burning with quiet strength, fixed on Naomi. Naomi pleaded again, her voice cracking. "Look, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Return after her." Ruth took a step closer, her voice steady as stone and fire. "Do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried." Silence fell. Even the wind seemed to bow before the weight of those words. Naomi's eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow now, but of awe. For in Ruth's heart, she saw the reflection of divine loyalty. And so, the 2 women, one aged and weary, the other young and unyielding, walked together toward Bethlehem, carrying nothing but faith and the ashes of their past. Behind them, Moab disappeared into the horizon. Ahead, the hills of Judah waited, silent and watchful, as if heaven itself was preparing the next chapter of their destiny. The road to Bethlehem twisted through stony hills and valleys, bathed in golden light. When Naomi and Ruth finally reached the edge of the town, the air was thick with harvest, the scent of barley, the laughter of workers, the rhythm of life reborn. As they entered, the people stopped and stared. Whispers spread like wildfire through the narrow streets. "Is this Naomi?" the women murmured, their eyes wide in disbelief. "Can this be her? After all these years?" Naomi paused, her face lined with sorrow deeper than time itself. "Do not call me Naomi," she said, her voice low but firm. "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty." A hush fell over the crowd. Even the children clinging to their mother's skirts fell silent as the two women passed. Though her heart ached, Ruth's gaze remained steady, full of quiet resolve. She helped Naomi settle in a small house on the edge of the town, its walls cracked and dusty from years of neglect. There was little food, only a few dry figs and a handful of grain left behind by neighbors who pitied the widow returned from exile. That night, Naomi sat by the dying fire. Her hands trembled as she whispered prayers into the dark, prayers that sounded more like broken memories than words. But Ruth watched her with a light in her eyes, the kind that does not fade, even when hope does. The next morning, as the dawn painted the sky with pink and gold, Ruth rose quietly. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and spoke softly to Naomi. "Let me go to the fields and glean among the ears of grain, behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." Naomi looked at her, this young woman who had left her gods, her home, and her comfort for the sake of love. A faint smile touched her lips. "Go, my daughter," she said. And with that, Ruth stepped out into the fields of Bethlehem, not knowing that the soil she was about to touch would be the ground of divine destiny, and that every stalk of grain would whisper the promise of a future she could not yet see. The sun rose over Bethlehem, warm and golden, pouring light over the ripened barley fields. Ruth walked among the harvesters, her steps quiet and humble, her hands gathering what others left behind. Each grain she picked was an act of faith, a small defiance against hunger and despair. All around her, the sound of sickles cutting and sheaves rustling filled the air. Sweat glistened on her brow, yet her eyes never wavered. She was a foreigner here, an outsider, but her heart beat with the rhythm of a people she had chosen as her own. And then, from a distance, a man arrived on horseback. His presence seemed to change the very air. The workers paused, bowing their heads in respect. Boaz, a man of strength and honor, descendant of noble lineage, had come to oversee his fields. His gaze swept across the workers, until it stopped on the young woman bending among the barley. "Whose young woman is this?" he asked the overseer. The man replied, "She is the Moabite who came back with Naomi from Moab. She asked to gather behind the reapers, and she has worked from morning until now without rest." Boaz watched her for a moment longer. There was something about her, not beauty alone, but devotion carved into every gesture. He approached her slowly. Ruth looked up, startled. Then Boaz spoke with kindness that softened the morning air. "Listen, my daughter. Do not go to glean in another field. Stay here close to my servant women. Keep your eyes on the field they reap, and when you are thirsty, drink from the jars my men have filled." Ruth bowed low to the ground, her voice trembling. "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you should notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz smiled gently. "Then I've been told of all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and the land of your birth to come to a people you did not know. May the Lord reward you fully, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Ruth's heart burned with gratitude. In that moment, she felt the faint stirring of something sacred, not love, not yet, but the sense that heaven itself had taken notice of her faithfulness. As the day faded, she gathered a full basket of grain and returned home to Naomi. Her eyes glowed with joy, her hands full for the first time in many seasons. Naomi, astonished, looked at the abundance and asked, "Where did you glean today? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." Ruth smiled, unaware of how her answer would open the next chapter of destiny. "The man's name with whom I worked today is Boaz." When Ruth spoke the name Boaz, a light flickered in Naomi's weary eyes, a spark of recognition, of divine design finally revealing its pattern. "Boaz," she whispered. "He is our relative, one of our kinsman redeemers. For the first time in years, Naomi felt hope stir within her chest. The hand of the Almighty, once heavy with sorrow, was now gently weaving mercy through their lives. That night, Naomi spoke softly to Ruth. "My daughter, shall I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Wash, anoint yourself, put on your best clothes, and go down to the threshing floor. Watch where he lies, and when he sleeps, uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do." Ruth's heart pounded, but she nodded with quiet obedience, and under the pale light of the harvest moon she went. The threshing floor was alive with laughter and music. The harvest was good, and Boaz, satisfied, lay down beside the grain to rest. When the night deepened and the fire burned low, Ruth approached silently. She lay at his feet, not as a servant, but as a humble plea for redemption. At midnight, Boaz stirred and found her there. Startled, he asked, "Who are you?" Her voice was barely a whisper, trembling but fearless. "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your cloak over me, for you are a redeemer." Boaz's expression softened. Reverence, not passion, filled his gaze. "The Lord bless you, my daughter. You have shown more kindness now than before, not running after younger men. Do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask. Everyone knows that you are a woman of noble character." He swore before God that he would redeem her if the nearer kinsman refused. And true to his word, when morning came, Boaz stood before the elders at the city gate, declaring his intent. Before witnesses and with solemn joy, he said, "You are all witnesses this day that I have bought all that belonged to Elimelech, Mahlon, and Chilion, and that I take Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance." The elders blessed them, saying, "May the Lord make this woman like Rachel and Leah, who built up the house of Israel, and may your house be famous in Bethlehem." And so Ruth and Boaz were married. In time the Lord granted them a son. When Naomi took the child in her arms, her heart, once emptied by grief, overflowed again. The women of the town said, "Praise be to the Lord, who has not left you without a redeemer this day. May his name be renowned in Israel." Naomi held the baby close, her eyes shining with tears that were no longer bitter. They named him Obed, father of Jesse, the father of David, the shepherd boy who would become king, and through whose lineage the Redeemer of all mankind would one day be born. And so from famine to fullness, from sorrow to song, the story of Naomi and Ruth became